Hey, Gabrielle here. Just wanted to talk to you about muscle pain. And specifically, we're talking low back and neck right now. I just want to say I love working with people who come in and ask, what can I do to have less pain? Are there stretches or exercises you recommend? These are the people that make my work so fulfilling. They're the people who make me feel like I'm getting somewhere. But the truth is that because they're willing to help themselves, they get more improvement faster from even the most basic support. But because I've been doing this for almost 25 years, I have more than basic support to offer. So, of course, the names have been changed to protect the innocent. My intention is to help those who want to help themselves. To that end, I'd like to give you some examples of how this works. Because there are certain patterns that are fairly repetitive, which I see over and over again. It's easier to help people with whiplash, sciatica, or low back pain due to certain conditions like this one that I'm about to describe. But there are other types of chronic pain that show up which are much harder to puzzle out. If someone has had surgery and there's a compensation pattern that may be completely unique to them, and it's a non-standard surgery, that's sometimes a bit of a puzzle. Or if there's a surgery that's affected the structure of the bone in some way, that's not as easy to deal with from the point of view of soft tissue. I can help people with soft tissue problems. What is soft tissue? It's a broad term. It basically means connective tissue. So we're talking muscles, fascia, tendons, ligaments, not bone, which would be structural. What the new research shows is that it is malleable, it responds to heat and pressure and things that you can do to impact the length, the elasticity, and the cellular permeability of it. The thing is that new research takes time to infiltrate into the schools and the doctor's offices. And so many of the people who are currently practicing are hustling and they don't have time to look at the new research. So they may actually be operating from old models, which are not valid. So it's hard to talk about helping people with chronic pain without first explaining that the old models were all based on theory. The reason for this is that they couldn't study living tissue without dissecting it in the past. If you dissect something, by definition, it has to be dead. All the existing models for how muscles work were based on dead tissue. And dead tissue has no elasticity, it has no vascular supply. Now, however, with the advent of a host of diagnostics ranging from innovations in neurology to arthroscopic cameras, researchers are able to see what the dynamic living qualities of soft tissue are. There's even a movement to qualify the fascial system as a new organ, and there are conferences internationally which devote their time exclusively to the discussion of new research on fascia. I look at fascia as a myofascial release practitioner. Tendons and ligaments are much stronger, but much less elastic. They're white because they have less vascular supply. The consequences of having less blood flow to an area of connective tissue is that it's more likely to become dehydrated. Most muscles and fascia is at least 3 layers thick. When those sheaths sit on top of each other and they're tight, it compresses the layer underneath. The cells become impermeable and they tend to get stuck. They no longer glide over each other. This effectively makes a person feel more tight and less able to move freely, but it happens so slowly that it's often not even recognizable until you feel relief, and then you feel like you've put on a new suit of clothes because your body is your primary habitat. Connective tissue is made from collagen. So one of the things that surprises me so much about physical therapists is that surgeons and physical therapists who help people with rehabilitation from injury, why don't they advocate supplementing with collagen powder in the diet? If you're building muscle or rebuilding an area that's been injured or surgically cut, doesn't it make sense to feed the body the nutrients it needs as precursors to make strong connective tissue? Go figure. I think in a separate post, I'll talk about some of the supplements and adjunct therapies that a person can do in the rehab situation. But for now, I just want to stick to connective tissue and working with the low back in this particular example. Connective tissue forms a web called fascia. Fascia provides integrity to the organs because it surrounds everything. It surrounds the organs, the blood vessels, the arteries, the nerves, the tendons, the ligaments, the muscles, each fiber of every muscle. And each fiber of every muscle is a cell. In some cases, fascia is translucent. It's a sheath that's so thin you can see through it. And in other cases, it's so thick that it provides structural integrity in the form of support, such as the IT band, for example. The IT band is otherwise known as the iliotibial tract or the iliotibial band, and it runs from the hip to the knee on the side of the leg, ensuring stability to those joints. But if it gets shorter on one side more than the other, it can actually be a serious source of pain because it causes compression in the joints and sometimes compresses on nerves, which then causes nerve pain. The goal of any rehabilitation should be to decrease compression on joints by getting muscles to lengthen when years of compensation have created excess compression on joints. But today, let's talk examples of what a typical day might bring. Let's say 9 a.m., Jazz comes in with neck and shoulder pain. Most massage therapists have learned some kind of a smorgasbord of different approaches, but only those who study with advanced teachers are actually trained to use their ability to sense differences, which is a Feldenkrais principle. It means to sense differences in temperature, heat, quality. Is there edema? Does it feel squishy? Is it bloated? You're comparing one side to the other because it's sometimes easier to discern that there's a problem because people are so different from each other. This used to be standard practice in nursing before there were a lot of diagnostics or when people were working in the field in a war zone and they didn't have the equipment. Nurses during World War I and World War II would feel the right leg and the left leg to see if there was a difference in the quality of tissue or if there was a difference in temperature. Palpation, for some reason, is not really taught with any great depth in massage programs, possibly because they're independent schools. I don't want to go there. I think massage schools should spend more time helping students learn to interpret what they're feeling. It takes experience, but you have to start somewhere. You don't want to wait years into your career to start thinking, gee, what are the patterns I'm noticing? It's reasonable that they don't teach it because it is subjective and it requires so much experience, but you have to sow the seed. You really have to explain that there is something going on there that is worth studying. It's leading to this situation where there are many massage therapists out there practicing who are doing things to you as if you were an object, and they're not interacting with you as a conscious, living grouping of cells with the same purpose. I say this because when I touched the quadratus lumborum of Jazz's low back, it was profoundly different from the right side to the left. In fact, if you put your hands on either side of the pelvis where you can feel the bony prominence sticking out, you could feel that the muscles on the left side of her pelvis were shorter than on the right, which means that the left side of the pelvis was higher. The muscles on each side of the spine should be of equal length. Here's another thing that blows me away. Very few chiropractors check the pelvis, and that makes no sense. Because if the pelvis is uneven, that means there's going to be neck pain. I can fix your neck till I am blue in the face, but it will never go away until that foundation below it is even. I look at the skeleton and the nervous system from the point of view of a Feldenkrais practitioner. The nervous system has a mandate to keep the eyes level with the horizon. Your nervous system's job is to protect your brain, so it defaults to these reflexes to keep your head level, even if your hips are not. And as you can imagine, what happens is this causes an increasing amount of pain on one side of the neck over time because one side is working harder than the other to keep your head level. Working with the neck really won't hold unless the pelvis issue is addressed. So I was able to level her pelvis with a myofascial release adjustment. But in order for it to truly hold, she has to change something in what she's doing that may be exacerbating it. And I don't know what that is until, we talk about it. She does a little bit of mindfully observing what her habits are that maybe she hasn't noticed before. Maybe she sleeps consistently on the left side in a position that shortens the right side of the body. Anytime you spend hours in a specific position, people don't realize this, but it's like giving yourself a chiropractic adjustment, but not in a good way. So it's the habits that we're unaware of that often contribute to the asymmetries. Sitting with more weight on one sit bone than the other consistently, or maybe sitting with one leg always crossed over the other over time helps perpetuate a problem like this. Always sleeping on the same side, or standing with more weight on one leg than the other. Or a very teenage habit is to stand with one hip pushed out to the other side. But it also happens to adults. Over the last year, I probably have had at least 3 new mothers who came in on a regular basis with neck pain, but they unconsciously always carry their baby on one hip. And when you do that for 1.5 years or 2 years, that can contribute significantly to shortening the quadratus lumborum muscle on one side. Something you can do right away is to always be more mindful of how you're standing and sitting. Be more mindful of putting weight on both sides equally. This is one of the reasons I teach awareness through movement. It's a way of reprogramming the patterns at the unconscious level, because if you try to fix that consciously, you will drive yourself crazy. What you can do is begin to observe, become the observer, and notice what the patterns are. And you can change some of it, maybe 10% of it, at the conscious level. But the rest of it is governed by your autonomic nervous system. I will talk more about resting length of muscles in a different post. But what's important to understand right now is that you can reprogram these unconscious patterns, and to physically manipulate the body from an external point of view without reprogramming the neurological underpinnings of habit. That's why people keep coming back. And I'm starting to wonder if some of these professionals don't want you to know this, because if you could fix yourself, then they're going to be out business. My goal is to teach you how to do things for yourself so that you don't have to keep being fed into this system, which, let's face it, it's a little bit dysfunctional. Again, we'll talk about that another time. The point is that awareness through movement in the Feldenkrais method taps into the nervous system's ability to self-correct. It provides the right conditions for it. All living organisms have this capacity. That's what makes wounds heal. As long as you provide the right conditions, you keep the wound clean and you make sure it's dry, it will heal. So if you're interested in learning how the Feldenkrais method provides the right environment for neurological reprogramming and re-education of compensation patterns that cause pain, I will post the link to some recordings to help you with that below. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe to boost the algorithm so that more people can gain access to this information. Because the more people that live pain-free, the happier the world will be. And let's face it, nobody was born with a user's manual. See you next time.